Today I want to invite you to spend a quiet part of my day with me while we talk about intentions for 2024. So thank you Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Arthur is down for a nap, and that means Molly and I get to spend a little girl time together. I'm going to take this moment to reorganize my knitting shelf. It gets a little disorganized as I'm reaching for things. This is also a bookshelf that Arthur has access to, so things are not always put back in place. It's a mess. It's an open bookshelf that I can make look nice. I share this with Arthur, I share this with Raz. So on one side we have Raz's things, and the other side we have my knitting things. And what I really want to do is make it a nice inspiring space for me so that I get inspired to pick up my needles and start on new projects. Well, that's the hope anyway. I really did like the way that the shelves were already decorated, so for the most part I'm just putting some things back where I found them, wiping the shelves down, making sure there's no dust everywhere, and yeah, just kind of propping things up so that it doesn't look messy. I used the move to this house as an opportunity to declutter any yarn from my stash that I didn't see myself using up. So I can confidently say that I'm starting this year with my ideal stash size. That was important to me last year, it was on my knitting intentions the previous year, and will be something that I continue this year. Really limiting what I welcome into my stash. I think I did a pretty good job last year actually. I didn't really welcome that much except for a whole bunch of cones from Woolly Knit. So main thing was that I didn't really want to have a lot of sweater quantities in my stash. And that's mainly just individual skeins because you can lose one or two, or they just aren't all together, so you forget that you have some, or they hide other skeins that you might have in your stash. So the cones I really like. But if I want sweater quantities, I don't see the harm in having a few of those cones because they hold so much without taking up so much space. So right now I have plenty of fiber to choose from for the amount that I'm able to knit myself. Something I recently welcomed into my stash is this petite lambswool from Biche et Bouche. This is a nice gift to me, which was really sweet. It was right up my alley, something I've wanted to try for a long time. So in 2024, this is definitely going to get a very special project. This 10 I actually found on the side of the road. I couldn't believe that it was being given away. Well, I mean, it's seen better days for sure, but as like a little decoration, I don't see why it can't make my shelves feel a little springy in the cold winter months. And then I'm decorating this shelf with some crochet hooks that don't get a lot of use, I'm gonna be honest. I might see one or two crochet projects. I surprised myself last year with the crochet projects that the blanket. And I could see myself working on another one of those in 2024. So I'm really not doing too much different here, just making sure that everything's nice and clean. And I have these Knit Pro needles, needle tips that I definitely don't get a lot of use out of anymore. They were my beginner needles, definitely something that I got a lot of use out of before. They're just decoration now. The majority of what I have stays on these shelves, but I do have some storage in our attic space. So I'm going to take some of these cones that I don't really see myself using at the moment. These colors aren't really doing it for me right now, and I'm gonna swap them out with some other colors I find a little bit more inspiring, some colors that I want to, or that I could see myself having on the needle soon. I also keep other odds and ends for crafting up here. A lot of my sewing stuff is up here. This is just not something that I'm going to be grabbing for at this time of year especially, so it makes a lot more sense not to have it on the shelf. I don't really want these shelves to be so overloaded. I think it just makes me feel nicer when they're a little bit more airy and open. Not being overloaded, I think, will make me feel a little bit more welcome in this space. And again, it will help boost my creativity for this year. While I was upstairs, I found some needle tips that went missing. I told you guys that ever since the move, we've got a couple of needle tips that are not accounted for. Don't know where they are, but I found a couple, so I'm gonna go ahead and put them back so that I have a full set. Again, these are my small Luca needles, like the really, really tiny tips. I think they're 3 inch tips. I don't really use these very often. It's mainly good for sweater cuffs and things that I'm working in a small circumference, so I will use these for that purpose. But these are not really needles that I grab for all the time, but I do really like them. I think it's birch wood. And yeah, I'll just show you guys. I really like when a set is all nice and put together again. So I'm picking out needles. Right now I only have one sweater project that's active on the needles. Everything else is on hold. So I think I can afford to cast on a new project this nap time. I have this Mondine yarn that I recently picked up and I just really love these colors. I would really love a new pair of cozy socks like the ones I've got on right now. They're so fuzzy and warm and honestly nothing special, but I love using up mohair in my stash for sock projects like this, and I see a lot of socks, hats, cowls, and smaller projects in my future. That's definitely something that I want to embrace this year, enjoying the little things. Quick projects that me or my family can get a lot of use out of is something that I want to keep doing this year. You all know about Squarespace. I talk about them a lot. They are the #1 sponsor of this channel, and I really appreciate that. Squarespace is my favorite platform to build a website. So as we kick off this year, one of your goals may be to strengthen your online presence, and I really believe that creating a website from scratch with Squarespace is the best way to do that. You can start simple by choosing from one of their beautiful themes and layouts, and then add features as you go. So start a newsletter, collect memberships, schedule appointments. Squarespace has a lot of features that cater to your needs. So definitely check out Squarespace. There's a link in the description for you to start a free trial with them to play around and see what you think. Then when you're ready to launch, you can get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using my code. So thanks Squarespace, and let's get back to the knitting. So now I can move into my knitting time, but first I'm going to fix a little snack. Welcoming the passion and energy that I have for knitting into other areas of my life is also a focus for me this year, so separate from knitting intentions. One of the things that I want to improve on and just learn is how to be a homemaker. So that can dip into many areas, but I'm going to start by focusing on making meals and pantry items my family loves from scratch. I made baby-led weaning snacks for Arthur here and there last year, just so that I could be on top of what exactly he's eating. But I'm really gonna challenge myself this year to do more bread, granola snacks, and meal prepping so that I know what's in the things that we all eat, so Roz and myself included. And I can feel good about us eating less sugar and other hidden ingredients this way. So these muffins are not sweet at all, by the way. We jokingly call them buffins because they lean more towards a biscuit, but I don't feel guilty about spreading a little bit of some orange jam for my snack, and having some nice mint tea next to it is a perfect way for me to get those last minutes of me time in. So I didn't mention it before, but the socks that I am casting on are the DRK Everyday socks, or they are based on the Everyday socks because I'm not exactly doing, sorry about Arthur in the background, if you can hear him. I'm not exactly following it to pattern. I knit these socks with mohair and a sock yarn held together, and the pattern originally calls for just the sock yarn. So I mix it up a little bit because I do want to get some of that mohair out of my stash. I always have some left over, and it always seems like it could be at least a sock, if not a hat, something more. So the socks are definitely what I really love because I really love mohair in socks. They're very fuzzy. You'd think they might be a little itchy, but they just make things really warm and a lot of fun to wear. And I love doing different color combinations. Like you can see the ones that I have on right now. They're a little loud and out there. It's a lot of fun. So I really enjoy this combination. Just as a note, I don't follow my exact size, what I normally would do. I actually go a size down, and I'm knitting on a 3mm needle than what's called for in the pattern. So I was having a little bit of trouble trying to remember Judy's Magic Cast On. I think that's what this is. Yeah, Judy's Magic Cast On. I did not look it up. So I was sitting here trying to figure out how, like, remind myself. And that's something I want to do as well. I want to know some of these techniques by heart instead of having to look it up on my phone, because I want to be able to just leave my phone in a corner and just go craft, you know, and not worry about it. So I was challenging myself here to remember exactly how to do the cast on without having to follow the Very Pink Knits tutorial for the 50th time. And I actually managed to do it. So here it's looking pretty good. So I'm not sure how many of you have little babies yourself. I definitely see a lot of you in the comments here and there. Some young moms having babies the same as Arthur, the same age as Arthur. I think you can relate with the fact that this doesn't always happen. Really, really lucky actually that the day that I wanted to film and the day that Arthur was napping really well kind of coincided, so I was able to get a lot done. Usually I have other things that I need to do, you know, picking up around the house, doing laundry. There's a lot of other things that I prioritize over knitting, and I think rightly so, as much as I would love to. And this is definitely something that I've kind of am learning as a mom, as a new mom, someone who didn't have someone depending on her all the time. I had a lot more free time in the past to just sit with my needles and just knit all day, it felt like. And that's definitely not the case anymore. Last year was definitely a time where I was practicing and learning a lot more about what I can do in my free time and what are things that I need to do now to be responsible and to make sure that I don't feel overwhelmed during Arthur's awake time, you know, like take advantage of these moments, but then at the same time, where's that balance? So that's something else. Just because I did it last year or learned a little bit about it last year doesn't mean it still can't be a goal for this year, is to continually learn that balance and get better at it and be efficient so that I can have more moments like this. And that's a huge goal for this year, so that I can feel like I'm on top of things in my house and not have that guilt, so that I can craft more with, just with more enjoyment. Like I said, I have a sweater project on the needles. That's the other active thing that I have going on, and it's the Sans Serif sweater by Olga Butano. It's not going well. Not gonna lie to you guys, I had the hardest time with this sweater, and I'll go more into detail about it because I think I sit down with you guys here in a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to show you some close-ups of the start of this sweater. It looks really nice here, but I'm doing it all completely wrong. And it's one of those things that's a little frustrating. Here you can see my gauge is really loose, but I'm not too worried about that. I didn't do a gauge swatch, of course, but I know that this sweater, or this yarn rather, from Woolly Knit, it's the British Merino, or British wool. It blooms quite a bit when you wash it, so I'm not too worried. Look at that color match. I was so proud of it. This is Ito Sensei mohair. I was talking about it a lot in my last podcast, in case you're curious about that. But I really want to do this cable knit sweater. I don't normally gravitate towards complicated projects, but here I am trying to challenge myself. I always say that I want to cast on a cable knit sweater, so here I am. I'm going to cast on this cable knit sweater. And I cast it on, and I just struggled with it so much. So let me tell you a little bit more about it. I'm gonna be honest, I think I'm gonna add to the goals to do something about this neckline. I'm not really crazy about the turtleneck. Every time I wear it, it's one of those things I have to just kind of push through after putting it on. I'm just like, okay, push through it, then you'll ignore it. But initially, I don't really like the feeling or really the look. I don't know. I've never really been crazy about it. So I think one of the goals for this month in particular is to cut this turtleneck and rejoin it so that it's more of a crew neck. I think that will make this sweater a little bit more successful. It's the Wednesday sweater by Petite Knit, by the way. I knit it with Filcolana Highlander wool and Tilia, the mohair, held together in this really lovely purple color. And I really love the color. I really love the sweater. I just don't really like the neckline. It looks so nice in the pattern pictures, but in practice for me, it just doesn't have the cozy feeling. It has more of like a suffocating feeling. Yeah, so just to round out this video and share a little bit of the last quiet moments that I have, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about the project that I had updated you on in my last knitting podcast. This is the Sansere sweater, and it kind of goes, it's inspired me for one of my intentions this year. And that's mainly to just not take myself so seriously. And I think vaguely this was also last year's intention, is to just knit the thing and don't overthink things. But more specifically, when I make mistakes in a pattern, it's hit or miss, you know, like sometimes I'll ignore it if it's a small mistake here or there, but what happened to me is a real pattern mess up. I really didn't follow what the pattern was saying, and I'm gonna throw the pattern under the bus and say that it's not my fault and that there are some errors. I've just been having a hard time getting started with this pattern. It took multiple nights, and I don't have a lot of knitting time anymore, so multiple evenings of me trying to figure out first what the pattern was saying, and I still, every time I read the pattern, interpret something else. So that inspired one of the last intentions for this year, is to just have fun with it, even when it gets tough. You know, when you're having a tough time with a pattern, that normally would discourage me and I would cast it aside and maybe start something else. It doesn't happen that often with me, so this is definitely a learning moment, and what I decided is to kind of shift my view of patterns like this, or this pattern in particular. And I'm just gonna keep going. And this is also inspired by my recent bread making and baking. I've been having a lot of fun in the kitchen, cooking meals too, not just baking, but you know, putting your own ingredients and things. And I've definitely messed up a lot of recipes or didn't have ingredients that I thought I did on hand. And I just kind of made the best of it. And that's really what I am gonna try here with this pattern, and then any other patterns that come up this year. Just make the best out of it, you know, figure out what you can do. Yes, it's a little frustrating that now I have to kind of not start from scratch necessarily, because I'm still gonna be following the pattern, but I need to be creative on how am I going to, like, I essentially put a bunch of cables that shouldn't be there. And that's gonna affect the entire design. And I just don't have it in me to frog, especially cables. I feel like that's just gonna be a mess, and more evenings of just spent more frustrated than relaxed. So I'm gonna change my mentality. I'm gonna try my best and just see where it goes and be creative. You know, like, this is actually a fun thing that I used to do with my knitting. I used to want to create everything that I was making on my own. I've since kind of had a little bit of fatigue with that and would prefer just to sit down and know what I'm working on, which is why I don't normally gravitate towards more intricate patterns such as this one, but I want to start having those kind of things in my wardrobe. So the only way to have one of those things in my wardrobe is to just knit the thing, you know? Yeah, so that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to just pop in and round out this video and just say hi. And thank you so much for your support and for clicking on this video and listening a little bit about what my intentions are for 2024. It's gonna be a great year of finding a balance and hopefully some new and exciting projects for me to continue to evolve my knitting. And, you know, of course, diving into some other things, which I think will only help me come back to knitting and appreciate it all the more. So lots more to come in 2024. Very excited about it. If you like this video, definitely give it a like. It really helps me out, and maybe subscribe if you want to stick around. I would love to have you here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.